Welcome to the Duval Mission Podcast. I'm here with head coach John Galloway. Coach, second podcast of 2025. The season's getting closer and closer. I think within the last week, we fielded so many interview requests. It feels like it's getting closer. Do you feel that momentum build towards the season as we get closer?
Yeah, I do. I think it's probably the quickest preseason we've ever had. With Rutgers obviously this Saturday, there's just a sense of urgency from the staff and the players of trying to get a lot of things in and just kind of constantly reminding ourselves, hey, this is a long year. And just because our preseason is happening fast doesn't mean we're going to be a finished product. And, all of us want to be great on day one, but there's going to be some chaos. And we're trying to embrace the chaos a little bit and just make sure we're being where our feet are every day and enjoying the process because it can get a little bit emotional here as we get ready for an opponent for the first time on Saturday against Rutgers.
And I assume it's not a new feeling. Every year you kind of have this same kind of build-up. How though has it changed from being a player first year as a freshman to now being a coach 8-9 years in? How has that feeling changed throughout the years as you get closer to the season?
Yeah, I think as a coach now with a little bit under my belt of experience, there's awareness that you're not going to be great on day one. And I think as a player, everything is result oriented. It's binary. And for us, I think we understand, okay, this scrimmage is going to be chaotic. There's going to be so many things that we're exposed of this Saturday, but that's why you do it. And that's why you play against teams like Duke and Syracuse and Marist in the first 3 games in February. That's why you want to play in early February. So when you get to the conference play, you have a greater sense of who your team is and what the depth chart looks like. And we know that what it looks like now will look drastically different than what it looks like in May. So having that wherewithal to say, take a deep breath, understand that there's going to be some imperfections, and we just have to find the growth in those imperfections.
And with the new season, you've experienced it a lot. What kind of advice would you maybe give to some of the younger guys it's their first step, it's their first day, it's their first game? There's obviously some excitement, and along with that, a little bit of anxiousness. How would you help them out and give them advice to kind of manage that?
Yeah, we talk about it a lot. Coach Silva always has a great saying, it's a marathon, not a sprint. A lot of us are going to try to sprint through this Saturday and the world is going to start or end based on our performance, and we have to understand that that's not really the case. It's a long run. And then I think the second piece of it for us that we talk about a ton with our guys is our sport is 1,000 mistakes, and the winner usually is the team that either makes 1,001 corrections and the loser makes 999. And we have to embrace that we're going to mess up. We're going to throw the ball out of bounds. We're going to miss shots. We're going to give up goals. We're going to lose faceoffs. But what do we do after that? What is our response? Are we reactive or proactive? And those are the things that I think are going to grow as we go as a team. But can we build that sense of belief with our guys? Hey, a mistake is just an opportunity to make the next one. And if we can, it could be a really fun year. But we have to be careful with the detriment of failure because it can become real, especially for our young guys.
And it also feels so, it's not just the younger guys that are experiencing a new thing. In this new era, you have transfers come in and, they're moving to a new city, they're getting new teammates, they're getting new coaches. It's a whole different kind of thing. How do they kind of get ingratiated in the program? What are some keys to that you think?
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to be player-led. For our new guys, we have 2 of them right now, the ability to listen to the teammates because they are hearing our voice for the first time, and it probably is drastically different than the coaches they've been exposed to. And then they're hearing a whole different language as well. So, they can come in and meet us as much as they want till they're blue in the face, but to have their peers next to their left and right at practice say, hey, this is what this means, or hey, this is what he means by this, or hey, he's getting frustrated, but he's really emphatic about some of these drills that we do. And that type of quiet voice as practice happens can allow those guys to just become part of the culture versus, oh my gosh, I don't know any of this. Let me go in and see coach and understand it. So the peer-to-peer leadership that we have within our team and just the welcomeness of our group to our new guys is important for the growth because it's got to happen fast, especially when we talk about mid-years. So to try to be able to expedite that growth, it has to be the 60-men collective effort. There's not enough coaches on staff to be able to make sure that growth happens on a daily basis.
Yeah, it takes everyone, it feels like. Do you think, as coaches specifically, do you think that there's some more maybe intentional touch points that you get with those specific guys throughout the all season, and as the season prolongs, it kind of helps them out?
Yeah, I think so. I think we have to be intentional. We have to be thoughtful, but you also want to make sure that you're reaching out to everybody as well. So there's this unique dynamic because when you get into the season, there is a lot of emphasis on, we have a green and white team once game day starts, and that team fluctuates week to week. But you certainly are paying more attention to a certain unit and maybe asking one unit to, imitate an opponent, and that's hard because then they're not developing. So you have to find those moments of growth and development. You have to be selfless as a player on this team, and that's something that we talk about a ton because not every guy gets to play, but by being in this facility, in this locker room, you're already in the 1%, and to understand the value of being in the program and then understanding your role. And that role could be not what you imagined it to be, but it could be incredibly more valuable than you thought it could be as well. So I think that's important. I also think that we have to be able to promote the positivity too. That's something that we have to be aware of, especially when you're in season, you're in the grind. Hey, there's a lot of good things that are happening on Monday through Friday. It's not just Saturday. Again, it's so binary for kids. It's binary for coaches as well. There's a winner and a loser, and only the people on the outside world see the result on Saturday. But can we define success Monday through Friday as well? Because I think that builds some of our confidence going through the season as well.
A big step into the season is the preseason game. We have Rutgers in Tampa. I've seen a lot of other programs. A lot of programs are playing like outside of their home vicinity, and some are even both teams are playing outside. What's kind of the idea and the strategy with these programs and this game specifically to play in places that you don't normally play in and kind of reach other people?
Yeah, I think, for us it's unique because there's just no Division I programs that we don't have on our schedule that are striking distance. You have to get on a plane in January to go play. It's difficult. It's unique. It's a challenge that you have to try to figure out, weigh out the risk reward. For us this year, Rutgers decided to make a trip to get to the South for their preseason because of the weather in New Jersey, and that offered up this perfect opportunity, this perfect marriage for us to get together at a neutral site. So for us it's good because we get to get on a bus. That's unique. We get to get the team away from campus, away from their irregular, kind of process, and be exposed to what an away trip looks like, even if it's unique and a little bit different. It gives us a chance to obviously play a Power 4 team. That's really unique. We normally don't have a scrimmage of this magnitude in the month of January, and that was intentional. If you look back in our history, we've struggled in the early season, I think more so than anything, because we're just not used to the speed of the game. So we're going to get exposed on Saturday in a lot of different ways. That's intentional. We needed this scrimmage to hopefully prepare us for what's to come here in early February.
And you mentioned, kind of Rutgers wanted to get to the South. Is there a benefit on the flip side for you guys, because a lot of your road games are kind of in these hotbed lacrosse areas, and it's kind of a similar dynamic, but you're playing regular season games and you're in season at those points.
Yeah, I think, anytime you schedule an away game, there's got to be something, there's got to be a reason why, and whether it's the opponent, of course, the value of playing the game, or the region, the geographic region. Obviously for us to be able to play in Syracuse, where there is not just Central New York, but Rochester and Albany and some of the pockets that we can recruit from down the road. Canada, even for our Canadians. I mean, that's the easiest trip that our families from Canada are going to be able to make. So that's important. And then you look at the St. John's Iona trip. Well, to be in New York City and to be near Long Island and near Connecticut and near New Jersey, have those families have access to us, but also to be able to be in an area where our alumni currently work and have alumni events around that game. So that is intentional, and that gives us a chance to be exposed to different areas of the world and expose our guys who are maybe from all different walks of life to a corner of the country that they haven't been exposed to before.
We've talked a lot kind of around this scrimmage. Let's talk on the field. Let's talk the scrimmage. What are some matchups that you kind of like? What kind of experience do you want to get for some of the guys on the team in this specific game? Just give me like your overall thoughts on just kind of the game.
Yeah, we won't look at the scrimmage as like a personnel. We won't look at the Rutgers roster, but what we will do is look at our team and say, okay, against a Big Ten team, what would we expect our group to be good at? And that's where I think we have to be mindful as a coaching staff. What do we want to be good at today? What are we going to emphasize? And we'll get what we emphasize. So for us, it's going to be individual matchups defensively. Can we win individual matchups? What does that look like against a real Power 4 team who has good athletic, physical dodgers all on the offensive side of the field? What does our goaltending look like against a little bit higher velocity type of offense? And then our special teams. What do we look like in between the lines, man up, man down, riding, clearing? How efficient are we after 6 practices of being able to do that against a team that will probably out athletic us, but do we have the scheme and strategy and effort to be able to execute? And then ultimately, I do want to see, what our pride looks like when the chips fall a certain way. Like, are we down 3? How do we handle it? Do we go up 2? How do we emotionally handle that? Like, those things to me, are going to be so important. I've said it to our alums, I've said it to our team, I've said it to our families. This scrimmage on Saturday, which I would normally downplay, this scrimmage to me means more than I've ever experienced in a scrimmage, because it's going to really put us in the spotlight. It's going to stress us in ways that we have not been stressed as a team, and it's going to ultimately tell a story. So come Monday, we're going to have a lot to be able to point at, work on, focus on, and learn from as we get ready for, obviously, February 1st.
And for a lot of these guys in this game specifically, it's going to be their first time playing in a collegiate level game. What are some things that I've just been curious to ask? What are some things that just feel different and are different from playing in a high school game and playing in a collegiate game, especially at this level?
Obviously the physicality, I mean, that ramps up to a whole nother level. Our guys have not experienced the physicality they're going to experience this Saturday, even some of our returners. The emotional challenge, there's going to be a little bit more of this, a little bit more chatter, a little bit more, when you make a mistake, you hear about it, and how you handle that is really important, especially for our young guys. So I think that'll be important. And then the situational lacrosse, I think, once you get to this level, every little nuance part of the game matters, whether it's the shot clock or a special teams clear or special teams ride. You have to be really engaged, really prepared, really proactive before you even step on the field. And if you're not, that split second where maybe you're able to kind of react and fix it in high school, you don't get that split second at this level. So we went through that cadence this morning with our team where it's, hey, if this, then what? And how quickly we can make that part of our instinct is going to be a big indicator of how much success we'll have this Saturday.
I think a lot of the excitement that surrounds kind of the scrimmage is just the fact that I'm sure the guys are tired of playing against those green and white practice jerseys. They want to see a different color. They want to see a different team. How do you kind of cultivate the temperature leading into it, where I know they're getting fired up, they're ready to go, but they're still practicing, they're still playing their same guys, but you want them to kind of ramp up into this game. How do you cultivate like the perfect temperature of the team and kind of have that controlled aggression in practice?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think we're kind of learning about this team still as we go. So do we need to pull these guys back a little bit? Do we need to kind of push them forward and get them a little bit more emotionally charged? I don't want to have this as a cop-out answer, but I truly want to see what our team does. I don't know how we're going to respond in a moment like this because we haven't been in it yet. We have not had adversity as a group yet, and I'm going to learn just as much as our guys are about how to handle this group, how to speak to them at halftime. That to me is like, okay, what does this group need to get them back in the third quarter? What does this group need out of a timeout? What do the captains need to do? What does their voice need to look like? So it's going to be this like really, this intense crash course on how to operate on game day, and we're all going to go through it together.
Does that dynamic kind of change year to year, or is there sometimes you can take away something that maybe worked 2 years ago or 3 years ago that you see in this team? Does that ever change year to year, or is it kind of you just take from your experience and kind of build off of what you've done in the past?
No, yeah, you reference back to all the teams of years past, but you also try to figure out, okay, well, what is the identity of this group? Last year's team, very different than this year's team. So you have to speak to them in a certain way. And again, that's a learning lesson for us right now as well, but we really do have to kind of deep dive into, okay, what makes these guys tick? And it could be different. I think what we're learning is our offense and defense have to be spoken to completely different ways. So like there might be more split huddles than years past to motivate them in different ways. So again, it's so much fun because it's like we are really just writing chapter 1 of this team's story, and we're still learning what the plot is. And I think we're going to learn a lot more this weekend.
That I would feel that has to be one of the most fun and kind of rewarding parts of coaching is you're kind of putting together a puzzle that you don't know what the end of the puzzle is going to look like, but you got to find the pieces to match in the right places to put them.
Yep.
So I've always thought that was interesting. I have one more question. It's probably my favorite question I've asked you, so I saved it for last. So obviously native New Yorker, so Bills fan, diehard. You love Josh Allen, I'm sure. Josh Allen has the way he plays is so enamoring to me. It's chaotic, but it works out in the end. And I know that you probably had players that, they start to do something and you're like, oh my God, why is he doing that? And then it kind of works out, whether it's the athleticism, the luck, or whatever it is, it kind of just works out. Is there a guy that you've had in the past, or maybe you have on this team, that kind of reminds you of kind of how Josh Allen plays the game?
Awesome question. Yeah. There's a competitive fire to him that you just feel like every play has something left into it. If I was to look back in the history of our group, I probably think of guys like Max Waldbaum, the guys that, just found a way. They had a competitive edge that put them in a position to be successful regardless of the scenario. This year's team, I probably look at a guy like Braden Harrison, a guy that just kind of muscles through things like Josh does. I think sometimes a lot of people reference Josh as like smashing all the buttons when he plays. Sometimes I think about Braden when he's playing in between the lines, but I don't know if we have quite the perfect analogy for that, but I hope that our guys share some of that same competitive fire that he does, and also some of the humility that he has. I think that's what makes him special in my eyes, and I think that's, this team specifically probably has my favorite trait about this group of guys is their humility. That it's a very selfless group, really on all ends of the spectrum, and that's a fun group to coach.
I love that you mentioned mash all the buttons. I think that's my favorite description of a player in the entire NFL, where it somehow just works out. You've never seen anything like it, but it works out. Mm-hmm. Well, Coach, thank you for your time. If you want to see the Bills and Josh Allen play on Sunday the 19th at 8 p.m., check that out. But if you want to see some premier lacrosse in the state of Florida, Rutgers versus Jacksonville at the University of Tampa on Saturday the 18th at 2 p.m. Again, thanks for coming out, Coach, and fins up.
Thanks.